So good morning, everyone, or I should say good afternoon, morning on the Pacific Coast. Again, my name is Jared Wozlowski. We're going to be going over the ToolOps solution. We're going to start off with kind of the traditional how to track down tools, all from the desktop version. We're going to go and search down those specific tools, then segueing over into the mobile application and showing you how your field users can create things like transfer tickets, even submit tool requests, update readings on specific tools or even pieces of equipment as well. And then concluding by jumping back and kind of showing some reports in the service and calibration fields. So again, as I mentioned, I want to start off with looking at the home page. And the reason I always like to highlight this as an option is anytime ToolOps releases enhancement updates to the system, it's the first thing you see whenever you open it. So in case you guys are waiting on any latest features or enhancements, you know all the information all up to date. As well as obviously if you need any help, all that icon is going to be submitted over in this little right section, and then any feedback. Again, the only way tools like this get better is getting feedback enhancements from you guys, the users, and hearing what we can do to do better. So the first thing is we're going to navigate throughout the system. The way we're going to navigate is over on this control panel on the left, and specifically starting with the tools and equipment module. Each module will have their unique dashboard as well as set of tasks. And those tasks are going to be iconed over here on the top left. Each dashboard is going to obviously have its, as I mentioned, unique tasks, such as these charts where we can see any trends occurring, key performance indicators, or even things like our favorites and message center. And what the favorites and message centers will enable you to do is favorites allow us to jump quickly throughout the program, meaning if we want to create a transfer ticket, I don't have to go down to the task module and open up that, select the correct task and create one. It's a click of a button so we can quickly get to that feature. Next is going to be the message center. And the message center is going to allow us to receive notification to a preset value that you guys have determined. Those preset values, for example, could be things that we see. Tools past the return date, so we know when tools are expected to come back. Tools or even assets with low levels. So we set up a low level indicator, and when we use that much material, that much consumables, it will automatically let us know that we need to order more or purchase more. Lastly, as well as an example would be tools that need to be serviced. So while we're out in the field, those field users are leveraging the mobile app. They're going to be updating those tools. Maybe something has at a needs repair status. So we know that tools are getting serviced and they're in proper operating condition. So as I mentioned, we're going to go down and we're going to try to track down a couple tools. And the first task I want to select is the tools task. This tools task is going to pull up a navigation tree. That is one of the ways that we can view out all of the tools that are currently or equipments that are in the system today. You can view that also into a couple different ways, whether that is by employee. So if we've assigned a tool to an individual, I can track who is in charge of that. Could also be location as well. So I want to see all of the tools on the Boston University or even the Logan International Airport. So I can see all the tools that make up of that. You'll notice that some of these have this little SP logo to it. Well, SP refers to stock point. And what a stock point simply is a stock point is, think warehouse, or essentially any place that is going to hold stock. Could be also a truck or a van, something along the lines of that. So while I'm on my Boston University, again, I can see here that I have a compressor. And before I go on, there's a couple different types of tools within ToolOps. As we see here, this is our type field. And this is going to show three different types of tools. There's the T, which is referred to as a unique tool. Think tools that need a tracking number, such as like a power tool or even a compressor or barrel or anything like that. There's also a Q, which refers to quantity tools. Those are typically those smaller items. Think more cables, drill bits, etc. Last field that you might also see and referred into this red box are our kits. And kits are a group of items or a group of tools grouped together to make it easy or even efficient to send from project to project. So as I click on this compressor, I can open up the kit details, which will now tell us the components, the parts of the pieces that make up of this particular kit. You'll see the ability as well as scan here that you can add in components on the fly to make up this kit as well. It's not going to lock you in or say once you have a kit, you can't edit it in any way, shape, or form. You can always update this information as we go. When I'm back on the tool browser, I can not only see where the tool is located, but if I expand the view out, I'm also going to see additional features. Some of those could be responsible party. And again, going back to who's in charge of this particular tool. And that can be updated by the users in the field, again, leveraging that mobile app. I can see where tools are. I can see the expected return date of specific tools. And again, that information of that return date is going to feed back into that report that I had shown before in the message center. So again, this is one way to track down a tool. Another way, maybe more efficient way, could be is just simply leveraging this search. And what the search will do is search gives us the ability to find tools using multiple parameters. Again, we can use the responsible party, for example. It could be the status as well. Or you can even just type in a description. So I'm going to go ahead and look up the compressors. So when I type that in, it's going to show us all of the compressors, not only the type of tool, but the kit of tool in the system today. Now, once we have that compressor found, so in this particular case, compressor number 112, I can right click on this. And what this is going to give us the ability to do is kind of call it a cheat sheet, if you will. It allows us to update this specific tool, not only things like our status, the return date, responsible parties on the fly, but we can also leverage this as the starting point to transfer out tools. Also, when we're at this menu or even on the tool browser, you can select multiple tools and then all transfer those together. And where this would come into play is think of we're ending the life cycle of a job, and now all those tools need to go to the next job. I could select multiple tools, add those directly into the transfer ticket, and send those out to get transferred back to our site with 3-4 clicks. In this particular case, when I generate my transfer ticket, I'm going to use that shortcut key as opposed to going down to the transfer module, and it's going to pull in all those compressor details or all the kit details. From this menu, again, we can scan in or even manually type in the tool numbers and add to this transfer request here. When we're generating the request, again, the fields we might want to include is something like our return date. When are we expected to get this turned back? Maybe delivered by or document. You're obviously going to want to include where the tool is going to, and that information is going to be displayed whether we're leveraging our 100 Contractor or 300 CRE. All of that information can get pulled in from that device. So all of our locations will be automatically populated into ToolOps, and then I can select this to the next site. The same is also going to apply when we're dealing with cost codes. So that cost-related information is another field that ToolOps will extract from those accounting systems you guys are currently using. Again, last field I want to do is just update the responsible party. So when I am finding a tool, this is going to make it a lot easier to see who has this tool, so I'm not having to call 9, 10 different people to track down a specific tool or an item. From here, again, we could capture the signature as we see in the lower tab, but I'm going to go ahead and process that transfer out. So again, what we've just done was we've narrowed down the search by finding a tool using a tool browser, and we've now sent one tool from one job to the next. What is that going to look like in the app version? Well, let me go ahead and pull that up for us. So as I pull up this app, I'm going to bring this screen, and what we're doing is looking at a live look of my mobile device. Again, your cell phone, a tablet, again, it could be an iOS, Android, whatever device we're accessing, this same feature will be applied, as well as there's going to be an app in the App Store that you can download. Just like the home screen, we like to let everyone know of all the latest enhancements to the system so we're all up to date. In order to navigate, again, there's two parts of the system. There is not only the field side, but there's also the warehouse side. Right now, I'm specifically focusing on the warehouse app side of the system. When we're in the warehouse app in this system, or excuse me, this field side of the system, what I want to do is go down into my search field, and this is now going to allow us to search up by employees. So if I want to assign or find tools by specific individual, tools assigned to yourself as well, or more commonly is even tools by those locations. As you see up at the top as well, any tools that are getting assigned to us or we're becoming the responsible party, there's a lot of notification that is within the ToolOps system, and this is an example of one. So it's indicating me via a text message when a tool is now assigned to me or when a tool is off. That also works when we have a service that we need to, or a work order is automatically generated. So segueing back into the mobile app, again, I'm looking up by locations, and specifically is this particular project. As I scroll down, I want to go to that Boston University that we just selected. And now I can see here's all the parts, components, and pieces that make up of it. You'll also see that I took that compressor kit from the Logan International. Now it's at the Boston University because we've processed that request out. If I hit this little I, it's going to allow us to get more details around this kit, telling us the components that make up of the kit, the parts, the pieces. I can also select on those individual components. And the benefit to selecting and getting down to that granular level of detail is you'll have the ability to update those components. So again, think if a tool doesn't work, say this air compressor isn't working correctly, I can change the status all directly from the field to reflect, hey, this needs repair, or don't send this out to another site. And when a tool is in the needs repair status, we only allow you to return this back to a stock point or a warehouse. The reason being is the last thing we want to do is take a tool, send it to a job site, and it's not in working condition. So we help to make sure that everything getting sent to a job is in that working condition and available to complete the job at hand. So as I go back, another field I want to do is also create the meter reading. And again, with our service and calibration field, based upon this meter reading is we can have work orders automatically generated or service requests automatically generated based upon that reading. So if we're taking, say, a larger tool, it could be a 250-hour service that's due. I can update that meter reading with those amount of hours, and that would automatically create a work order to be then filled out and completed to accomplish that 250-hour service. And again, we're going to go more into that as the demo goes on. So as I scroll back, once I'm on a site as well, I can always select on an individual tool and move that into a move ticket. And what that will do is, as a tool is on a site, based upon our rate sheet, it is accruing a charge that we have internal. It could be a day rate or a weekly rate or even a monthly rate. And as that tool starts to accrue, that's going to build in that charge. And so when we go through this process and I'm no longer using a tool, I might want to move this off my site so I can create this or add this to a move ticket to make sure we're getting that tool off the site and we're not accruing a charge. Again, freeing up, making sure we're not holding or hoarding onto the individual tools. So as I scroll back into our section, again, we can go to that move ticket to allow us to move out, send tools back into those warehouse. What I now want to do is actually go through a typical request. And when I open up my request, you're going to see that it's going to have a couple different fields as well onto here. Those requests can be the draft, submitted, in progress, and complete. Why we would have these different buckets is this is going to help reduce the amount of time that we're wasting calling the back office, calling the warehouse personnel to say, hey, I need this tool for this particular project. They can submit the request, or even at the end of the day, as the project continues, I can add parts into this request. Apologize. I can add the parts and pieces into this particular request. So we're having all of these tools scheduled up here. You can even hit this little plus to add in additional fields. And you can either type it in the tool by looking up the material. You could also search, and it could be either we can scan it in from the camera, and we'll show that in a moment, or you can type in the number manually. Once this request is ready to go ahead to the next step, what I now want to do is go ahead and hit submit. What submit will do is submit is going to now take us to that next field. It's going to submit this to the warehouse personnel to then go ahead and pick up these tools. Again, now we can be indicated by that by the submitted. Once a tool has started to been picked or is being picked from that warehouse personnel, it now transitions over to the in progress field. Again, allowing us to know, getting an update of where these tools are being located. Lastly is the complete field. So this now indicates that person out in the field that a tool is ready to be either picked up or has even been being sent to a specific location. Now, segueing into the verification field, verifying allows us to go through a job site or even tools that are assigned by yourself and, well, simply make sure that that tool is accounted for. So when we go into that Boston University, and I'm going through maybe once a month, going to check all these tools, I can indicate that a tool is here, update that, and say we're good to go, that tool is there, and go item by item to, again, ensure that we're not losing tools or missing tools that are unaccounted for, or we even need to reorder. Once all these tools are verified, again, you might have a long list of tools, and that's going to be very cumbersome to try to navigate through and find what tools you have left. So ToolOps has just created a little field to say hide verify, simply just saying, show me what left I have to pick. That's it. Once done, we can fill that out and submit that verification ticket. Now, the other field that I want to go into briefly is in the settings. And we're now transitioning from the field to the warehouse. Now, warehouse personnel can also access the same information. Again, it could be on a cell phone or a tablet like we see on screen, or it could also be from the desktop version as we see in the background. They could go into their transfer tickets, create that transfer ticket directly from the mobile device, or even create a pick ticket, and I can see all the tools that are ready to be picked. From this icon, I can go ahead and select that tool and say, let's go ahead and pick this tool. And as I mentioned, you can either manually enter in the number, or if I just scan in, I'm going to pull my camera up for a moment, you can see that I'm using my camera to go ahead and scan in that barcode image. Again, we can also go through the same inventory count as well as what we had seen before. So that was kind of an overview on the mobile app for both the field and warehouse side of things. Transitioning back into our desktop version, what I want to do now is actually go into our materials and consumables. So again, not only we can track in ToolOps is the tools and equipment, but we can also track materials and consumables. Same way to apply as we saw before, we can go through the browsers, selecting the correct materials and navigating through that. You could also organize tools and equipment or even materials and consumables into what we call these models. And think of models as a way to, again, organize these items or like items together. So the instance I always use is this apparel field, as opposed to navigating and saying, finding my jackets, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. I can put all these like items together in one field, making it easier for me to distribute or send these out to a particular job site. As I mentioned, it's also going to work with the tools and equipment field. And specifically what I want to go is a little bit into the larger pieces of equipment and under the vehicles section. So when I open up my vehicles, I can see here's the list of all the vehicles we have in the system. I can also drill into this CAT 930 and see the component or the model record, which gives us the high level overview of this tool or of these series of tools. the year, the manufacturer, some basic notes. You'll see in this list under here, if we have multiple, say in this case, 930Ms, it's going to organize that list out into here. And when we drill into that tool, this is taking us to what we call the tool record, which is a personalized record about this particular tool. Things like license plates, if we're dealing with vehicles, maybe the meter readings as well, where we're at, serial numbers, information that is pertaining to this specific unique tool. In our top tabs, you can also see we add in additional fields, such as parts repaired, or even services, which I want to highlight. Services can, again, automatically be created by that meter reading on the mobile app. And one of those, for instance, is our 250 hours. Way I've created that is by hitting this add field in the lower left. And what this is going to do is set up a ability to create either a one-time or even a reoccurrence based upon, could be a date, a meter, or even a turn. And what simply a turn is just look at it as it gets sent to the job, it comes back, it needs maybe a certain service accomplished. You can also trigger whatever comes first as well. In this case is now I've set up the reoccurrence. I can select the service that we need to do, and maybe we're going to perform our 1,000-hour service. So I'm going to make sure we include that. I can assign a technician right from this icon, or I can go ahead and complete or add in tasks. And in this case is I'm going to add a new task. The task would be maybe it's the dryer, maybe it's just a simple engine oil. And I'm going to save that onto the task. What this is going to do is, again, when this is populated, when that report or that work order is automatically generated, it's going to be populated with all the services that we need to do or that we've submitted here. And that's automatically populated or automatically can be sent to that technician to be completed. If you're wanting to include things like our instructions, we can also include instructions or additional details to the technician, whether that's make sure we bring a specific tool when we're servicing this vehicle. It would also work with the required tools. So when I use this, I typically think of, if we're doing an oil change, maybe CAT has a specific oil filter wrench that we need to use to take off the oil filter. And that's where we can make sure we're requiring these tools. The benefit to requiring a tool here is we can track down the value of that tool later on. We'll show that in a moment. Parts or components that might be made up of that service could also be added in before a work order is created. So think, if I'm going to select an oil change, what I'm doing here, and I want to scroll down into my materials, and we're going to go down to our engine oil. I can select that CAT oil that we need, update the quantity, and then add that into the to the work order to be generated automatically. Lastly, charges could be any additional charges. Now, keep in mind, this is sample data. That's why I just have a 0 under the cost. In your guys' world, it would automatically populate if we had that material already set up in the system. So from here, I can go ahead and hit save, or we can cancel that out. Now, a question always comes up. Sometimes we do a hybrid of our services. Sometimes you guys might do the smaller parts and components, but the larger vehicles or even the larger instances, maybe you have CAT do that, or maybe we send that out to a dealership to go ahead and perform those services. What's that going to look like? Well, what I tell a lot of people to do is when we're going into this service and calibration field, I'm going to generate a new work order. Okay, I've now had, say, CAT gone out and did that service. Maybe it's the 1,000-hour service we just did, and I want to go into that. Before I create a new work order, I do want to highlight that we can have the ability to search up all open work orders, all work orders available, work orders in a certain parameter to narrow down when we've done services, or even things like requests and statuses. So you do get the ability to filter out that information, again, if we're performing all of that in-house. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and create that work order as I mentioned. It's going to look very similar to the icon before, or the menu before, I should say, where we have the work order details. the tasks that make up of that work order. And what I want to focus on is the charges. So when we're at this menu is I want to record any services to a vehicle, right? And I want to add that in by adding it in this charge field. Now you can break out each of those charges or each of those services line item by line item, if you will. But what I often see is maybe someone might just fill in, 1,000-hour service, something generic, and then also put in whatever the cost might be of that 1,000-hour service. So it could be $5,000, whatever the case may be, 500 or anything like that, and save that information on. Now, when we do that, you're also going to get, because we sent that out to a dealer or even CAT, you might get a receipt. You might get a service 21-point check sheet or whatever we do. And we want to record that information and still tie that back into the tool. The way we do that would just be simply attachment. Again, that could be that image of the receipt, whatever the individual gives you back, could be the 21-point inspection, so you know what needs to be done in the future. All that valuable information is all getting tied back into that particular work order. Something else to mention when we're in the service and calibration field is we went through a service plan. That was the 200,000-hour service. How that differs from a service request is, think service request is more reactive. So that is, I'm out in the field, a tool is broken, I update that. That would be under those service request categories. Okay. Now, scrolling down, again, we just covered in our tools, equipment, modules, sent those out to a project. Now we've completed any services to an individual tool or piece of equipment. Next thing is we want to go into the job cost and billing. Specifically, I want to highlight our rate sheets. This is how I had mentioned earlier, a tool will go out to a site or a material will go to a site, and how we're going to charge for those tools or those materials or even those pieces of equipment. You're allowed unlimited rate sheets. In this case, is I have my tools rate sheet and I got my master rate sheet. I'm going to open that up. And again, this is going to give us a detailed view of all the tools that are in the system. And when I highlight, say, this air scrubber, I can see the tool, the model number, the base value, so what we paid for that tool, the calendar as well, which is just going to give us the ability to charge in different ways. And as we see, we have a calendar and assignment. Assignment is just like that one-way journey. Think when it gets sent to a project, however long it's there, it's going to accrue a value. And then whenever it comes back, that's one trip or one assignment. Whereas the day, hour, minute calendar is going to accrue the longer a tool is there. And the way the system will do that is, again, highlighting this scrubber field, is we see we have our daily rate, which is our 22, the weekly rate, 112.68, and then the monthly rate. Now, the system is also smart enough to understand when to switch each of these tools to the next tier. And that is based upon the calendar that we've set up. You can have the calendar set up to not charge for specific holidays. You guys don't work. You can have it charged to say, we don't work Sundays, so we're not going to accrue a charge on that. Whatever we set that up, that's going to be based upon the calendar, and then it's going to toggle to what we call the rate sheet rules. And the rate sheet rules, again, just tell us when to switch to the next category. So as I see here, I have our day rate, how many hours in the day? Well, there's 8 hours in the day. Once we hit that threshold, I want you to switch to the weekly rate, which is that 40 hours. And when the 40 hours has been completed, I want you now to go into that monthly rate. So the systems are all going to do that for you. It's not going to be having to done or updated manually in the back office. All right. So again, that's how the tool is going to start to accrue a charge. And there's two ways to that, is the job cost. Well, simply that's what we're going to do internally. Then there's the billing side of thing, and that's what we're going to charge to the customer or externally. Once all of this data is complete and we need to get this over into the accounting system, there's one way we can do that, and that's going to be through the export data file. So what we'll do is we're going to create a CSV file after we've selected the job cost center that we want to, unposted, and maybe if we have a template of all the data that we need to see, maybe the parameters of a date range, and then we can export that out, as I mentioned, to the CSV file. From there, it can get imported into the job cost imports tab in your Sage 300 system. All right. So again, we've now gone through that entire process of adding a tool to its site. As the site is on there, updating that status, updating the service and calibration fields when a tool needs to be serviced or repaired. We've reviewed the abilities to go into the job cost, and as that rate sheet rules start to accrue, a tool is gathering a charge. How does that information all tie back together? And the best way is in our reports field. So because we're adding all of those valuable different components, we get the ability to do a lot of different reports within the system. Now, as we see here, we have a lot of out of the box reports, but you could also create your own custom reports. Some of the out of box reports, as an example, could be, tools meter readings, or even an aging report, or even tools that are retired. Maybe a consumable report. So what did we use the last month or in that rate? And if we go into the billing one, something that ties all those elements together could be something like a ROI calculator. For instance, we're going to go back to that cat that I had mentioned or we had highlighted before, and we're going to see, is this tool making us money, or, well, are we losing money? And based upon this report, as I bring it over, I can see here is the initial purchase price of that particular tool, the service cost, so all the repairs that have gone into it, that all of those charges gathered. The revenue would be when we send a tool out using that rate sheet, how it's going to accrue those charges. And in this example here, I can go, this isn't making us money. We can free up the capital to make other investments or buy other things that are more crucial to us. Or even maybe from now on, let's rent this piece of equipment because we're not leveraging it that much. Everyone's starting to make those better educated decisions because we're able to see where tools are, where they're going, as well as all the charges associated to them.